Governor, appreciate you joining us. As we mentioned, the former president claimed again today that the 2020 election was fraudulent in an interview, that it was a rigged election. If that's a losing message for the Republican Party, as you've repeatedly said it is, and it probably is, why is he still the front runner?
Well, look, I understand he's kind of stuck with this old message. He doesn't really know how to get off of it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to actually making a case, being on a debate stage, engaging with voters on a one-on-one level, they don't want to hear about yesterday's news, not Republicans. They want to hear what you're going to do for them tomorrow. They're going to want to hear how you're going to decentralize government, take the big government mentality out of the federal government, send power back to the states, empower individuals, limited government local control. That's really what it's going to come down to. So there's a lot of sympathy here. There's no doubt that what's happening in New York with the DA has built a ton of sympathy for the former president. And so when you get polled, someone might say, well, do you support President Trump? They say, yeah, you bet we support him, because they feel like he's being beat up politically. But that doesn't necessarily translate into a vote. It really doesn't. That's still 9 months away, 10 debates away. Again, New Hampshire's going to have the first of the nation primary, and most voters will likely decide 3 or 4 weeks, within 3 or 4 weeks of the election, some right up until the day of the election. So just a lot to play out.
When you've been asked before about whether you'll support the eventual Republican nominee, you've always said you will, because there's no way it's going to be the former president. You said that's just not going to happen. How can you be so confident? I mean, right now, DeSantis is the person closest to him. Obviously, there's a lot of people not entered the race, yourself included. But DeSantis has been tougher on Mickey Mouse than he's been on the former president.
Well, look, I'm fairly confident it is not going to be Donald Trump. I am. Look, the DNA of Americans says we go forward. We go for the next big idea, the next generation, right? We're not about yesterday's old news. We're about the kind of that younger generation, that next voice that comes up, the next 2.0, if you want to think of it that way. That's what we are about as Americans, always innovating for something bigger and better than what we had before. So I just don't buy that we're just going to settle. I mean, that's what the Republicans would be saying. We're just going to settle for yesterday's loser. No way. That's not what we're about. And we need to win. We need to close the deal as Republicans in November of 24. So even if he were the nominee, he's not going to be able to win it. We saw what happened in November of 22. I remind Republicans all the time, we got crushed. We should have had 53 or 54 U.S. Senate seats. With his message and his candidates, we got crushed. Why would we want to relive that misery?
I know we also saw that what happened in 2016 during the primary, where there were a lot of other candidates, all of whom were saying very similar things, were talking about issues, had track records, and he picked them off one by one. Is there any concern you have that will happen again?
Not nearly as much. Look, I can tell you, everyone I've talked to, I talked to all the candidates. They're all good friends of mine. I think everyone understands we can't have a prolonged diluted field like we had back in 2016. That just isn't going to work out for anybody. It's going to be bad for the party, bad for America. So I think it's fine that a lot of candidates get in. I don't think you can really prevent certain candidates getting in. It'll be a kind of a big debate stage in the beginning, and then it will winnow down. And then kind of those levers will really come out late fall, early winter, before the first of the nation primary, where we're not just saying, hey, we hope we figure it out ourselves. There'll be folks kind of driving everyone, those that are kind of in single digits, driving them out of the race, galvanizing behind one, maybe two other candidates, and really making this a two-person or three-person race. So I feel a lot of confidence that we've learned that lesson. I think the candidates know that. We've been discussing it. And my sense is that's where we're going to be. Now, it doesn't mean Trump can't win the nomination. I mean, it really doesn't. He's doing much better in the polls than I ever thought he would be doing at this point. But there's still so much to play out and so much opportunity to find kind of that next candidate, that next voice.
Let's say you or Governor DeSantis or Ambassador Haley or some other Republican does, in fact, defeat the former president for the nomination. Is there any reason to think he won't claim the primary was rigged and urge his supporters to boycott the general election?
Of course he will.
Of course he will.
I have no doubt. Look, I have no doubt that if and when President Trump loses the primary, he's not going to go away quietly. He's going to take his ball and go home. He's going to tell people not to vote. Who knows what he's going to do, right? I mean, there's absolutely no telling. But he's not going to go away quietly. That's just a reality, which means that we just need to make our case strong, and we need to make our case in a way that can win it in November, regardless of what the former president does. I don't think he'll be able. There won't be a time to get on a third-party ballot or anything like that, because he won't have the opportunity to get ballot access. So I'm not too worried about that, but just trying to be a disruptor. I mean, that's really what he does best. He's a disruptor. And so that's obviously one of the concerns. So candidates have to be on their A game.
Governor Chris Sununu, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.